welcome to Secular Sexuality, the ACA show that is a little bit of everything all rolled into one. I'm Christy Powell. My co-host tonight is a child, a mother, a sinner, and a saint, Serafina Smith.
I do not feel ashamed. Hello.
Hello. And our guest tonight is Brett Turner. Brett has led Austin Ageplay since 2011 and presents at local groups and national conferences on leather, ageplay, medical fetishes, and master-slave dynamics, and is qualified to compete in the upcoming 2021 International Mr. Leather. Brett, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much for welcoming. I'm really excited.
Yeah, that's right. We're talking daddy doms and precious princesses. So hit us up at 512-991-9242 or call the show at tiny.cc/callsex because the show is starting right now.
All right, Brett, we are walking into some kind of tricky space. So let's try to lock down some of this terminology.
Sure.
What is a caregiver little dynamic?
Well, okay. So a caregiver little dynamic is going to be some relationship between two or more people where there's definitely a polarity, where you have somebody who most likely inhabits a more childlike persona or has more childlike traits while being an adult, of course. And their vulnerability is an opportunity for their counterpart, the caregiver, to create that space for that vulnerability, a space of safety and security where the junior partner can feel accepted and be able to be their more authentic self. So a caregiver little relationship can take so many different forms. That's really the most generic term available for any kind of these relationships. So it's a great one to use for purposes of this show. I want to note that it doesn't, I'm not going to jump ahead too much, but it doesn't necessarily imply DS, dominance or power exchange or even sex. Caregiving really is a lot like it sounds. It means taking some level of responsibility for somebody else in a consensual way, but it is distinctly flavored with sort of domestic routines or the things you do to raise a child. Early in the pandemic, I just happened to notice this. I made this household routine for my partner, and you can see it's really modest: out of bed, hug, exercise, dinner plan, cleaning and workbook, lights out. But it's also on a Disney chalkboard, and it's also in pink writing, right? So this makes it more appealing and hence more accepted and so forth. So all the little psychological tricks that you hear about parents employing to get their kid, whom they love, to eat the new food or things like that, those are features in caregiver little relationships too. This sort of baseline atmospheric persuasion and the sort of ambient childlike stuff that helps create the space and the mood for you to do this. And the workbook, for example, you can certainly co-opt regular parenting things. You don't have to go make your own. All this stuff exists. But the workbook referenced on that chalkboard is actually a Loom workbook, a Loom journal that is produced to be done by a parent and a child. So, here's some examples of our pandemic journal entries. You can see the alternating pen and crayon. That's all I wanted you to see. And we explored different topics together, fed the rabbits, went for walks, all those types of things. But in these dynamics, you can, if you're the caregiver, then if you're at a store and you reach your hand back, that hand is there waiting to be taken. And a parent or an older brother or sister understands what that's like. It's a really nice love language. It's really a mode of affection, a language of affection that can happen between two adults where one person is most authentically vulnerable in this state and the other person enjoys facilitating that and experiencing it and enjoying it, making it part of their life too.
Yeah, so if Caregiver Little or CGL is like our big umbrella, how does age play or age regression factor into all of this?
Oh, wow. I mean, there's a lot to unpack. So
Sure.
I guess I would put at the very top of the umbrella just age play,
Sure.
because I
Okay.
would hate to bias the topic as being requiring a relationship. In fact, I really like to enable age players to do age play in a satisfying way without a relationship. I think that's one of the highest and best goals of age play community, is to create a sort of brotherhood and sisterhood of littles, so that you're not dependent on entering a relationship to experience this part of yourself, and you're in a better spot to make good relationship decisions, um, so gosh, that was a lot, but you asked, where does the age play enter into
Sure.
it? Well, the age play term is also the truest top of umbrella term. It's all under age play, and under age play dynamics, I would put caregiver little at the top of that sub umbrella. So age play is just the entire body, but of pursuits. But if you want to go ahead and apply it, age play can be any form of activity that puts someone in that space, or is adjacent to it, or is an expression of this part of themselves. And you mentioned regression. It's important to say that regression experiences can be very different from person to person.
Sure.
Some people, when they go to an age play party and they get down and play with the Legos with, the other age players and stuff, they could say to you, well, I didn't really get little at that party because my partner wasn't there, but I had a really good time and enjoyed the people I met. And there you have like sort of a sketch of how you can imagine a first, second, and third gear might go, if you are somebody who has an experience of regression, you could regress more or less. So more doesn't necessarily mean down and younger,
Right.
So some people surely use it that way. You really have to ask people what they mean by their terms in this, because regression is terribly vague, especially when people want to subdivide different age play expressions. So it's not necessary to have a regression experience to be an age player. By and large, people who are age players will call themselves age players, littles, middles, ABDLs, maybe pets or dolls or things like that. There's a lot of variety. So others will operate in a way such that they're sort of regressed 24/7. And at that point, the term starts to lose meaning. What we're really seeing is that this is just a sort of always on factor in their personality, that their standard personality tends to be more childlike and expressive and so forth, more impulsive and maybe more sensitive and things like that. So they might have a sort of semi-regressed feeling all the time and not be so conscious of special times when they're more regressed, or maybe they are. You really have to have these conversations with the individuals, but the terms are still understood, that you can have an age play relationship with or without regression. You can be an age player with or without regression, and you can further subcategorize yourself kind of according to your arena of interest, loosely laid along age ranges, developmental states. And there will be exceptions, but it's a useful shorthand. And a given age player may regress to different distinct states. For example, you're going to know theater people and so forth. All sorts of people might have an inner persona that they give a different name.
Sure.
And in this case, you might give yourself 3 different names to indicate 3 different stages of development, each with their own likes and dislikes. And they may not progress exactly. There may be some sort of out of sequence seeming things where maybe one of the younger states is actually more advanced in some respect. So anyway, subcategorizing yourself into a little, a middle, an ABDL, or multiples of each is all fine.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about maybe altered states or maybe just a particular mindset, language gets really tricky. And so I recognize we're trying to describe like a very internal process when we're talking about age regression. And I also want to acknowledge we're throwing just a lot of terminology and a lot of new ideas at the audience.